I think it's going to be very, very tough out there in the future. There's an old saying, people give advice. One thing they always say is do not push the panic button. And my advice is different. Push the fucking panic button.
And I'm so happy that we're here.
Good news, you're not in England. And what people are thinking about is, well, we'll go back to work and everything's going to be fine.
Yesterday, I had a temperature.
Oh, no. Don't distract yourself and confuse yourself. It's so easy to get lost in this crisis that we forget, what can I do here? Forgive yourself for being human.
Hello, my dear friend. How are you?
Life is good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm actually, yesterday I had a temperature.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which was very, very mild, but I was scared because I felt like not very, very good. And since I'm in total almost 99.9% isolation, I thought I couldn't possibly get it. But I think it's okay. I mean, so I feel all right now. So hopefully, as they say in Oriental countries, inshallah, I mean, I will be all right.
Now, Gennady, how old are you?
I'm 63, actually. Yesterday was my birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. So you're 63.
Yes.
Are you in pretty good health?
Yes, yeah. I do sport, I jog, yeah.
Now, your odds on dying, very slim.
Right.
Even if you get it, possible. Anything can happen. But statistically, your odds would be 0.1% or something, very, very low.
Right.
Almost all of the deaths from this are older people, number one. But number two, people that have previously existing conditions. If you have previously existing conditions, this is not good. But if you do not have previously existing conditions, almost all of the deaths are older people.
Right. Yeah. Well,
people, and even at my age, I probably have a 2 to 4% chance of dying. So it's not high. It could happen. As far as I know, I don't have any previous conditions. Sometimes, though, we have previous conditions and don't know it, such as heart blockage or things that you're not aware of. So anyway, hopefully you won't get it, but if you do, your odds are very, very positive. So I would, think positive. If you get it, you get it. The other advantage is if you get it and you don't die, well, then at least you hopefully will develop some immunity to it.
But they say for half year, so it's very short-lived immunity. I was told that it's not really like something you can. It's like with the ordinary flu. I mean, you cannot have it.
Yeah. Now, but where are you right now?
My wife is from Uzhgorod. This is a small city in Ukraine. It's 120,000 with the river, Carpathian Mountains, beautiful. And I'm so happy that we're here because we have a big house and big garden. And in fact, I don't feel really kind of pressure. And food is brought by delivery, or some friends. So it's okay. I cannot say it's ideal because I miss social interaction. I'm a social person. I want to go and give a hug and go for a coffee. But yeah, that's a small price to pay, I think.
And so the good news, you're not in England. I think people are grossly underestimating how bad this is going to be from an economic point of view.
Right.
This is going to be awful. And what people are thinking about is, well, we'll go back to work and everything's going to be fine. I've interviewed many people and asked a question. Think of your net worth before this started. Assume you had to sell everything today, your house, everything you own, you had to sell today. How far down is your net worth?
Yeah.
The average person I've talked to, and these are affluent people, is 40% down. That's the average. Now, if you talk to the average person in America, it's 100% down. Most people have no savings. Whatever savings they had are gone. They're maybe in the hole right now. So here's my concern. When things, quote, reopen, it's not a matter of can people go to the stores. It's also a matter of are they going to be willing to spend money? And one of the most common things I've heard during this whole crisis is, this has really been good because I realize I don't need all that stuff. I've heard this over and over.
That's exactly sometimes my kind of, because I order things which are essentially necessarily I don't buy designer clothes anymore.
Yeah, I don't need this stuff. Well, let me give you the bad news. The entire global economy is that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff we don't need, that's called the global economy.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Go to a shopping mall. Ralph Lauren's sales are down 90%. Polo, 90% down. You might say, well, okay, people don't buy $1,000 coats. Somebody had to make that coat. Somebody ran the little store that sold that coat.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody ran the shopping mall. It all goes together. And all of that, quote, stuff we don't need, that is about 80% of the global economy. And especially when Americans and Europeans quit buying that stuff, all the people in Asia that make that stuff are going to get killed. All the people that sell that stuff, all the people that transport that stuff are all going to get decimated. So, my feeling is this is going to be a long, hard road. One of my friends is Dave Chang. He's one of the world's most famous restaurant guys. His estimate, every one of his restaurants is going bankrupt. They're all going bankrupt. And all this bullshit about pivoting and carry out, it's nonsense. He runs Michelin restaurants. You can't have carry out from a Michelin restaurant. That's a joke. It doesn't work. His assessment is they're all going broke. Well, most restaurants are going to go broke.
And the whole culture of eating out and socializing outside is really...
And the shopping mall. Really, what do you actually need from that shopping mall? Answer, nothing. You don't need any of those things.
You go to the local around the corner to get some food, some bread, some cereals, and that's it.
That's all you need. The reality is, though, there are a lot of people that work in that shopping mall. And they're all... So what's going to happen, I think, is in New York, where I have a home, there's a 9th Avenue, which is nice little small restaurants and bars and all that. My guess is 100% are going to go bankrupt. Why? They live on tourism. How many tourists are going to come to New York City in the next year? I can answer that. None.
Right.
Tourism in New York, gone. Every one of those restaurants is going to go bankrupt. Now, they will reopen under new ownership. Somebody will buy them all at 20 cents on the dollar. And the world will start over again. But in the short term, all of those small businesses are going to get killed. The speaking business, I don't have to tell you. The convention business, airlines, tourism, cruise ship, Las Vegas, massive bankruptcy. So I think it's going to be very, very tough out there in the future. And so, there's an old saying, people give advice. One thing they always say is do not push the panic button. And my advice is different. Push the panic button. If this isn't the panic button, there is no panic button. So I think it's going to be incredibly difficult out there. I'm not going to say all this in our talk because I don't want to be a downer. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. I think a lot of people are going to go broke. The average small business, 4 out of 5 go broke in 5 years anyway. Only now it's going to be worse. Just a second. Let me turn this thing off. So now it's only going to be worse. So my expectation is it's going to be really tough. And I don't think it's going to be tough until we, quote, reopen. Now, who knows how long that's going to take anyway. I think it's going to be tough for probably 4 or 5 years.
If this corona or whatever stop, it's been struck, because they say there'll be another wave and another wave, and there are more, even more dangerous viruses somewhere. So it's really like
tough.
So yeah, tough.
It's very, very tough. So, my advice for you is do whatever you can do I wish I could give you some happy talk. I canceled about $1.5 million worth of speeches this year.
Mm.
Everything is canceled. Fortunately, I'm old. I can do it. But if I were 31 years old, my entire life would have just disappeared.
Right.
So I'm only fortunate in the sense I'm old. So, it's going to be really, really hard out there.
And even
And
those with the cash, I mean, if all these 6 trillion injections, into the economy will create inflation, devalue the currency, I think.
well, normally it would create inflation, except today, maybe not. Here's why. The US printed, say, $4 trillion and put it in, it gave the money away.
Mhm.
Nobody did anything to earn that. It was just given to people. The US gave away $4 trillion. Normally, the dollar would devalue.
Mhm.
On the other hand, Australia gave away 1 trillion, and their economy is 1/10 the size of ours.
Mhm.
So, on a relative scale, the US dollar got stronger rather than weaker compared to the Australian dollar. Why? They're printing more money than we are.
Mhm.
So, I think what you're going to see globally is just massive printing of money. And ultimately, what happens is, again, the value of money globally, not just in the US, it'll start in other countries. Smaller countries are going to get it first, but eventually it goes everywhere. And you can't just print money, which is what's happening today. How about the Ukraine? They're doing the same thing there?
Well, yes, I mean, they cannot give a lot because it's poor country. And that's probably one of the advantages, is less involved into the international trade. It's more isolated. It's poor country. People used to live not in poverty, but they have their own ways. For example, where I live at the border with Slovakia, Slovakian border 2 kilometers from me. And
Yeah.
Hungary is 20 kilometers. So it's very, very kind of interesting. It's Central Europe. Vienna is 500 kilometers from here, driving, easily. And Kiev's 800 kilometers, so much further. So people find their ways in a lot of gardening. I've done so much gardening, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, I love it. I mean, I love it, putting all these seeds and see the thing grow.
Yeah, very good.
It's incredible. And I'm city person, so I've never done it before. And to be honest, I mean, and that's serious. I mean, usually I do introduction and some basic facts. In your case, introduction would take half of our interviewing time. That's that. So it's really, you've done so much in your lifespan, which is incredible. I know that you like to be introduced as an author, speaker, and coach.
Right.
You are the person who is in top 50 thinkers in the world, this independent body which selects the most influential people in the area of business and leadership. And I think you've been there twice more than anybody else. You're executive coach number 1. I think you coached more than 200 CEOs and 150 out of really big business structures. And so you were rubbing shoulders with the Ford Motor Company and some other companies, and you were advising them. And of course, you as a writer, I checked actually on Google, all your books, or most of your major books, were translated into the all former Soviet Union languages.
Very good.
So Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Russian, Ukrainian, etc. So you're really kind of, you've done your part excellently. And I know that you were, until recently, you were traveling extensively, giving your talks.
Right.
And I remember you mentioned, I think last year, when you said that you have a card with 11 million miles on American Airlines. So we were saying that Clooney is having a rest compared to you. So really, it's incredible. I think things are going to change, and we are going to talk about those changes. Nobody can predict anything. However, I think there are some indications, whether they're good or bad or pessimistic, optimistic, I don't know. And I'd like to mention one thing about you, if you don't mind. It's maybe personal, we can cut it off if you don't like it. But you gave me an impression, and you are, as a person of incredible love for life. You are very, very enthusiastic. If you remember, 3 years ago, we were in Belgrade. We were sharing stage, yourself, Brian Tracy, and myself. And then I remember after the first day, and it came to me now, after the first day, myself and Brian were dog-tied, we went to our hotel rooms, and you said that you hang around a little bit longer. And then next day, when you enter the venue, people started clapping. Nobody clapped to Brian, nobody clapped to me. They started clapping to you. And it turned out that you were staying up to 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know whether Liza knows about that, but you were dancing, you were doing karaoke, you were socializing with people, you were talking to people, and that is really incredible. So you really love people and you want to share. And I think it's one of the qualities which you possess, which is incredible desire to share. All your video content is widely open. You are not monetizing it as a lot of people would do. And that's very, very nice. And that's very, very nice and very, how can I say, for me, it's very important because I never work with the people I don't like. I've started doing that 15 years ago and I still keep on doing it.
Life is too short.
Life is too short, absolutely. So that's a short introduction, which already took 10 minutes of our time. But
let me add one thing to the introduction.
Right.
What I would like to add is I'm working on a project called the 100 Coaches.
Yes, should
and I went to a program called Design the Life That You Love. The woman that ran the program is a Turkish woman, Ayşe Birsel. She asked, who are your heroes? My heroes are very kind and generous people who are very nice teachers, and they never charge me any money. Mm-hmm. Peter Drucker, Warren Bennis, Richard Beckard, Alan Mulally, Frances Hesselbein, wonderful people. She said, you should be more like these people. So I decided to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free. And the only price is when they got older, they should do the same for others. So I made a little video and put it on LinkedIn. I have 1.3 million followers on LinkedIn. It turned out to be the most widely viewed video in the history of LinkedIn. Yeah. Over 18,000 people have applied to be adopted. So now I've adopted about 200, 250 people. It's called the 100 Coaches Program, although it's more than 100 now, from around the world. And these are amazing people. People like the head of the Rockefeller Foundation, president of the World Bank, a former CEO of Ford, the head of the Mayo Clinic, just on and on, 15 of the top 50 business thinkers in the world. Amazing people. And the idea of the program is to give back, that you give what you know to each other and try to help each other. And the only price is that people pay it forward. And it's a very unique idea because typically we think of only helping people who are poor or sick or have problems. We don't think of helping successful people. Well, this has been interesting because number one, successful people get just as lonely as anyone else. Number two, the idea it's lonely at the top, it's lonelier at the top today. It's incredibly difficult. And number three, these are people that can help many more people. So the idea is you help people and you don't charge them money, yet there's a fee. And the fee is they also try to help people. Mm. So in a way, it's a very high leverage opportunity. When I could help my friend who eventually became the CEO of Ford, he was able to help thousands and thousands of people. So an opportunity to give to people, and it's a great idea. So the idea is find someone, adopt them. Right. Teach them all you know for free, and just say there is one price. You get old, you do the same thing. I think so. Maybe someone listening today to this talk.
Yeah, it's an incredible philosophy. And let me kind of, and again, something which I've done many years ago. I was working in Serbia as well, and I was doing jiu-jitsu. And one chap, Nenad Pavlov, his name is, he wanted to go to competition. He didn't have any money. I was a management development consultant, working for a British company, for European Union. I had some money. I gave him some, not much, but I gave him enough to travel. Yeah. He came back and he said, Gennady, I cannot give you back the money because I don't have them. And I said, okay, well, you give me your money when you are rich and famous. I thought that's a smart move. And I'd forgotten about it. Yeah. About 10 years after, I've got a call saying, Gennady, I'm ready to give you money back. And I thought, how wonderful. I downscaled, I'd like to get this euros back. And then I thought, well, are they going to change my life? Are they going to do anything with this amount of money? I said, no. And I said, look, give it to someone who needs it like you did.
Yes.
And he said, what a wonderful idea. And he gave it to someone and he doubled the money.
Good.
And can you imagine that, I think you mentioned it, last year, I've got a picture and I have it on my desk all the time.
Yes.
There's the Eiffel Tower and it says Gennady Polonsky respect.
Yes.
So there was a martial art competition and those guys won a bronze. And they won using the fund which has been created without me knowing about it, called Gennady Polonsky Fund. I mean,
Yes.
it's not massive, it's small thing, but it made me feel so happy, so proud. I'm really kind of, and I know that I shouldn't maybe mention it, but it's not because I want to raise myself, but I think if people would be more considerate about others, I think that would make definitely our life better.
Very nice idea.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of, its scale is uncomparable to yours, of course, but there is something which I feel that it's really worth mentioning that, yeah.
Oh, very, very important. Now, today, if it's all right, I would like to talk about two things. One, in a time of crisis, the first thing is looking at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Then second, as a leader, how could we best lead others during these very difficult times? So number one, yourself. Number two, others. And again, I don't want to spend too much time because I want to be sensitive to the viewers' times and realize that, yeah, we can do another tape later if we want to cover more topics. So the first one is yourself. These are very, very hard times. And I'm a student of Eastern philosophy. I'm a philosophical Buddhist. I've also studied Hindu philosophy. And the most important parable in India is called the Gita. And the Gita is a story of life. And in the Gita, there are a couple of key messages that are reinforced that are very different than messages from the West. Message number one is never become attached to the end result of what you do. Never become attached to the end result of what you do, because you don't control the end result of what you do in many cases. You may control part of it, you don't control all of it. And when your value as a human being is attached to the end result of what you do, you almost invariably set yourself up for failure. The key learning point from the Gita has never been more important than today. As you and I have discussed, many people that we know are going through incredibly hard times. It's not because they're stupid or they're bad or they did something wrong or they should be ashamed. They did not have control over what happened. They don't have control over this virus, and they need to make peace with what you can and cannot change in life. The other thing about the Gita is you face the reality that exists. You face the reality that exists, and you don't deny the truth. So there's a good term that I call pragmatic optimism. Pragmatic optimism. Now, what does that mean? On one hand, you want to be positive and think about the future. On the other hand, you have to be realistic. You can't deny what is. What is can be very, very hard. And this is not a time for happy talk and we're all going to wish this away. We're not going to wish this away. The reality is this is very hard. So we need to do two things: pragmatic optimism. One, I'm not Pollyanna. I'm not saying happy talk. I'm not just giving a speech and all this is going to go away. On the other hand, face the hard reality that exists and then say, how can I make the best of the hard reality that exists? In the story of the Gita, the protagonist has two choices: bad and worse. Mm-hmm. Bad, worse. And he's feeling very sad and it's terrible and this choice is bad and this choice is worse. And the ultimate message is suck it up. You are where you are. You have two choices. You do your best to make the choice and you make peace. You make peace. One of the great people in our 100 Coaches program is a fellow named Harry Kramer. Harry was the former CEO of Baxter. And it's a very funny story. He was CEO many years. He became CEO at age 41, and so he had a very big career. And then one day his ego got in touch with him, and he got a little too egotistical. So the board of directors told him, they said, Harry, We want you to do this and this and this and this and this. And Harry was a little too full of himself. He said, if you want to talk to me like that, you may want to reconsider who the CEO is. He said 1 hour later, he got a call from the board of directors. They said, Harry, we took your advice.
Reconsider.
Advice. What advice? They said, you told us to reconsider who the CEO is. We did. It's no longer you. They fired him. He's a wonderful guy. He always tells his story, right, of how he got fired. He had a great career. He was a CEO for many years. You know, things happen. He got fired. And today he's one of the happiest former CEOs I've ever met. He does a lot of volunteer work. He is ranked #1 speaker, #1 teacher at Northwestern University Kellogg School. By the way, that's the only thing I don't like about him. My daughter was a professor there at the same time, and she was in the top 5, and he ended up winning. So I always hold that against him. He defeated my daughter. But he's a wonderful guy, donates all kinds of money to charity, and he's one of our 100 coaches. And someone asked him a question that's very apropos of today. The question was this. They said, Harry, in your life, you've had to make very hard decisions. You've had to lay people off. You've had to fire people. You've had to do things that really hurt people's lives sometimes. You had no choice. How do you sleep at night? He said, I always sleep at night. I asked myself 2 questions. Number 1, did I do what I thought was right at the time? Now, maybe it was wrong, but I thought it was right. Did I do what I thought was the right thing at that time? And number 2, did I do my best? And it said, if the answer to these 2 questions is yes, I did what I thought was right, and yes, I did my best, that's all you can do. That's all you can do. You do your best and you do what you think is right now. That's it. And let me give you an analogy. I'm writing a new book called The Earned Life.
That's my question, actually. What I'm sure that you would say that.
Yeah, The Earned Life. And in my upcoming book, my co-writer, his name is Mark Reiter, R-E-I-T-E-R, has done my 3 big bestsellers with me. He is a golfer. Now, I'm not a golfer. He's a golfer. And he has a great story about golf we're going to use in the book. It's very appropriate for today. Imagine you're a golfer. You hit a beautiful shot right down the middle of the fairway. And you're playing for the club championship. The foursome before you had one guy who's loud, drinks too much, really annoys him. Your beautiful drive goes right down the middle and hits a beer can this inconsiderate person has left. The ball veers over into the rough where you have this terrible lie. Now you're incredibly angry. What an idiot. How could he have left this beer can? I hit a perfect drive. I may lose the championship. This is awful. You're angry. You walk to the ball. The great golfer learns one thing. You have to forget about the past. If you think about the beer can, if you think about the shot, all you're going to do is mess with your head. You also, at that second you're hitting the ball, you can't think about the future. You do one thing. You hit the shot that's in front of you. You hit the shot that's in front of you. That's it. Now, before you hit the shot, you develop a strategy. Now, let's imagine you're a great golfer and you're in second place, but you don't care if you come in second or fourth, you want to win. And you're one shot behind. What are you going to do? No matter how difficult the shot is, you try to put it on the green. Why? If you fail, it's okay, you fail. This is the only way you have a chance to win. Your strategy, put the ball on the green. On the other hand, let's say you're 3 shots ahead. There's no need to take a risk. You put the ball in the middle of the fairway, you hit up, you get a bogey, and you still win by 2 shots. You're fine. So before you hit the shot, you think, what is my strategy now? What is my strategy now? Then once your strategy is established, you have a plan. You get over the ball, you know your strategy, you do one thing. You focus on only one thing. Hit the shot now. hit this shot, not winning the tournament, not the evil guy, not the beer can. One thing, hit the shot in front of you. Well, today, I think this is a very appropriate metaphor. Many people have gone through very hard times right now. And it's very easy to get into, it's not fair. It's not right. I invested my whole life into this small restaurant and it's going to go broke. You're right. It's not fair. And you could say it's not right. It is. The first thing is accept the hard reality that exists. Then you say, okay, here I am. Here I am. What am I going to do now? You come up with a strategy. May not be perfect. You come up with some strategy. Then you hit the shot in front of you. You focus on what am I doing right now? You hit that shot in front of you to the best of your ability. Then you got a new shot to hit. You breathe, you come up with a strategy, you hit the shot in front of you. Well, today, it's hard times. And leaders need to look at the reality that exists. And let me give you a strategy that every leader can share with their people. And Gennady, I'll send you a copy of the article so people don't need to write this down. Yeah. This is called the 5-question coaching approach. 6-question coaching approach. 6-question coaching. And when I sent it to you, the article was not written for a crisis, yet it's very good for the crisis. Here's the article. At any second in time, if you are a leader, every person you manage needs to have a very clear strategy. They need to have a clear strategy of where am I now? What are the priorities now? Where are we going now? And if you follow the approach I'm going to give you, there's no reason people should have a problem with alignment, direction. Here are the 6 questions. Question number 1. You have a dialogue with each of your direct reports as a leader, and you say, here's where I see our priorities now. Here's what I think is most important now. What do you think? You have a dialogue discussion. You talk about why. Here are our key priorities now. Question 2, here's where we are going now. Question 1, where are we going now? Question 2, where are you going? You have a dialogue with a person and say, well, where do you think you and your part of our organization are going now? What are most important priorities for you? Because you want to have connection 2 ways. 1, between you and the person you're managing, and 2, the bigger picture and the smaller picture. Where are you going? Question number 3, doing well. Sometimes in a time of crisis, we forget to focus on what is going well. First you say to the person, here's the things I think you and your part of the business are doing very well. Then you ask a question. What are you proud of right now? What do you think that you are doing well right now? Because sometimes they may say things you did not appreciate. They may, well, we worked extra hours for that presentation, or we did these things. And you might say, I didn't really understand that. Thank you so much for telling me. I should recognize people for that. Number 4, and as you know, I'm a believer in feed forward more than feedback, looking at the future, not the past. Number 4 is ideas for the future. I would say, as your manager, here's some ideas moving forward that I think may be very positive for you. Then you ask a person a question. If you were the coach or advisor for you, what ideas or suggestions might you have for yourself? This is a great coaching question.
So sort of distance yourself emotionally from...
Exactly. If you were the coach for you, what ideas might you have for you? Then listen. Now, my friend George Borst, CEO of Toyota Financial Services, implemented this 6-question process with huge success. Mm-hmm. And he said, that question number 4, he was very surprised. He thought people would say fluff. Gennady, I work so hard, I'm so dedicated. No, he found most of the time their suggestions were better than his. More than half the time he found himself saying, the ideas I gave you, ignore them. Ignore them. I like your ideas better than mine. Then, by the way, I've done this process with 7 major CEOs. As you know, in my coaching, I do not get paid if they don't get better. I get paid all 7 times. They all had dramatic improvements in terms of providing direction, coaching, dialogue, just by doing this. Now, question number 5, how can I help? A great coaching question for you as a leader, how can I help? And then finally, question number 6, in this crisis, what ideas or suggestions do you have for me? 6 basic questions. Number 1, where are we going? Dialogue. Number 2, where are you going? Number 3, doing well. Number 4, ideas for the future. Number 5, how can I help? And number 6, what ideas do you have for me? 6 basic questions. Then the key to making this process work is something called mutual responsibility. Mutual responsibility. Now, how does that work? What I would say is, assuming, Gennady, I'm your manager, I would say, Gennady, we've covered these 6 basic issues that I think are very important for today. A couple of points. One is, this may change. During periods of rapid change, this may change. Our priorities today may be different next week. I'm not saying that these priorities are going to be the same priorities next year, or maybe not next week. Things are changing so rapidly. At any second in time, though, I want you to be totally clear on what's important. And to make this work, mutual responsibility, what does that mean? I would say, Gennady, if at any time you feel overcommitted, not clear on priorities, not sure what is the most important, I want you to talk with me. Because if you take responsibility to talk to me if there is ever doubt, ambiguity, or confusion, I take responsibility, and that's what I'm getting paid for, to set the overall strategy and direction here. If I do my job and you do your job, there is no reason we should have any questions on alignment or commitment. An important thing on priority is make sure what is most important is most important. You want your focus on what is most important, and if things are going to get dropped, let's drop what doesn't matter as much, or drop what's most important. So, regular dialogue during periods of rapid change, like we're going through right now, this is not going to be less important in the future, it's going to be more important. Basic situational leadership. When you go through rapid change, you don't need less direction, you need more direction. People need more direction, they need more clarity, they need more support. So having a regular dialogue where you take responsibility as the manager and the person takes responsibility, it's the best thing you can do. And then also, which is very hard, you as a leader have to take responsibility for the overall benefit of the organization, which can be very hard. Sometimes you manage people who are your friends. Sometimes you manage people you really like. And you're going to have to make some hard decisions sometimes. And you can read all the happy talk books you want to. When you run out of cash, you run out of cash. Sometimes you make hard decisions. And when you do this, you have to do it with compassion, tell people the truth. Your mission as a leader, though, is to keep the organization going. Because if the organization collapses, everyone loses together. So you ultimately have a responsibility to your organization that you've signed up for and to make it work in the best way you can. And realistically speaking, like the golfer, you don't always win. You don't always win. If you do everything I just taught you, number one, may not win. On the other hand, there are 2 really positive outcomes that could occur. One is, as a human being, you make peace. You make peace with what is. You answer those 2 questions. Did I do what I thought was right at the time? Did I do my best? If the answer is yes and yes, make peace. You play the shot in front of you, and as a leader, you encourage your people to do the same thing. Face the difficult reality that exists. Be clear on strategy. Have that priority before you hit the shot. Encourage them, hit the shot in front of you, make peace. Don't waste your time in life on what you cannot change. Focus on what you can change. And the final point for me is, I had the privilege of spending 50 days with Peter Drucker, the world's greatest authority on management, and he taught me many lessons.
You were at the board of Peter Drucker Foundation for many, many years, as far as I remember.
10 years I was on the board, 10 years. And I'm very blessed. One of my old mentors had a good saying, it is easy to appear tall if you stand on the shoulders of giants. So if I appear tall, it is because I'm standing on the shoulders of some real giants. By the way, I got ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world. My intellect compared to his is that of a 10-year-old. I've never deluded myself. This man was so smart. He taught me many, many things. And, you know, he taught me this, a lesson I share over and over. Our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart, not to prove we're right. We get so lost in proving how smart we are and right we are, we forget we're not here on earth to prove we're smart or right. We're here to make a positive difference. If I don't make a positive difference, it doesn't really matter how smart I am. And it doesn't matter how, quote, right I am. I'm not here on earth to prove I'm right and smart. Number two, decision makers are made by decision makers. Make peace. Whoever has the power to make the decision is going to make the decision. You change what you can change. You change what you can change. You make peace with what you can't change. And before you do anything, and this is a question from my book Triggers, you ask one question. Am I willing to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? Am I willing to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? If the answer is yes, do it. If the answer is no, let it go. Don't waste your energy on what you can or you can't change. Focus on what you can change. I mean, the government in the Ukraine, I'm sure they made some mistakes. The government in the United States, I'm sure made mistakes. China maybe did good things or bad things. Who knows? The reality is, are you going to change any of that? Well, if the answer is no, put your time and energy where you can make a positive difference. If you cannot make a positive difference, don't waste your time, don't waste your energy. Times are hard enough as it is. Don't distract yourself and confuse yourself. It's so easy to get lost in this crisis that we forget, what can I do here? And put all of your energy on what you can do now. And what you can't do, let go. The other thing is, in hindsight, I'm sure everyone could have done some things that are different. Forgive yourself for being human. Forgive yourself for being a human being. You probably didn't save as much money as you should have. You could have done this or that or the other. You know what? It's over. Forgive yourself for being a human being. Make peace with what is. Make a strategy. Do what you think is right. That's all you can do. Then get the shot in front of you. Do your best. That's all you can do. Thank you.
Marshall, if my viewers will get the same feeling as I have now after listening to you, I think my mission is achieved. I really thank you so much. Thank you so much. All the questions which I prepared are because they're relevant. I mean, what you said is the most important. It's really life advices. It's advices during this time of crisis and years to come. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I would love to see you in person one day and to go for a drink of tea.
Sing some karaoke.
And sing some karaoke. Actually, I started taking singing lessons. So we can sing together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marshall. Have a lovely day. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.